Hey everybody, welcome to episode 29 of Pealed Back's LiveCast Conversation With. Today, my guest is Bryant Stratton. Bryant, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. As always, I like to read a little bit of an intro to our guests. So, Bryant, when the life you're leading becomes an attempt to better understand a question, you end up with somebody similar to Bryant. The question of why do we not have enough time, connection, and security to build ideas has been what's driving him for the last 25 years. He's been researching the human utility function, building up a global thinking network, and is now launching several companies from that. He's also the founder of an organization called Blueprint, which is an organization focused on empowering people to innovate through building solidarity and ethically operated companies. He believes in the power of bringing awesome people together so they can build, invest in each other, and grow ideas by helping one another. Blueprint is becoming a vibrant community on Discord, and the diversity of skilled people all looking to do just that to change the world. When he's not doing all that, he's also the host of a podcast called Finding Beautiful Questions, which is available on YouTube and other podcasting platforms. The impact our questions should have on the world is profound, and Bryant goes on a journey with his guests to better understand what drives them, their approach to life, and how it aligns with their vision for themselves. My friend, thank you so much for being on this show.
Oh, wow. Thanks, Gene, for the kind intro. Guys, he wrote that up for me, and I really appreciate that. Thank you, Gene. It's worth it all just hearing something like that. Thank you.
Well, you are very welcome. I feel that they're very true words to who you are. So,
yeah. And when I met Gene and yourself, I can't tell you how much fun it's been getting to know people like you. And so, the success that I'm seeing these days is getting to meet people like yourself. Right. It's amazing what happens.
So it really comes down to that power of connection, isn't
it? Ain't that the truth, dude?
Well, and it comes down, I think, just what I've been seeing from your community that you're growing on Discord. It's like, I call you a connector, and I truly believe it. You seem to be like this magnet that's just pulling in, finding all these great opportunities as, you like to say the words, making jazz, and it seems that you're really putting quite the band together.
Everybody's got an instrument. I'm reminded of a phrase that we use of the place inside someone that their mother loved, right? That's an expression of someone and how they get into the world. Then they find real problems for that kind of person. And in order to provide a solution, you have to have the problem. So it really starts from like seeing that inside someone, and then really appreciating what they do from there, from that point of context. And then everybody's brilliant, if you see it that way, like everybody's brilliant.
Everybody has their own piece that they can bring to it, their own instrument to play.
Yep.
Well, let's kind of dive into, I'd love to know a little bit more about like what drove you down to finding beautiful questions and that idea of, looking for everybody's brilliance.
That a lot of trauma. We won't go into that too much, but
No.
you got to have the problem to offer the solution. And when you feel completely alone, right? You just lost your job. You just had your first child. You realize, hey, something's got to change in my life. I'm not flourishing. I'm just not headed in that direction. And, the idea of why do we not have enough time, connection, and security became a beautiful question that I've followed in my life almost as a field of research. And so finding people's beautiful questions and finding out, what really drives them to go, as Gene said, live their life as an answer or live their life as an attempt to better understand a question. It just became a natural flow back to hear about other people's beautiful questions. And it helped me to find my own better, moreover, what I was going to do with that in my life. Yeah. So it just kept showing me more of myself. I kept going, essentially. Yeah.
So it's just kind of you've taken it as an ability to open yourself up, and now you're just it's just spilling out to the rest of the world going, what do you have to open up?
Wow. I'm going to get on for more lyrical alchemy with you. And the events that you're hosting, like the open forum with Peeled Back and those kinds of things, that's jazz, right? Just
Yeah.
the fact that you're doing that and our community can benefit from that. That's something that's a conversation I always am excited about, and it makes me have a better day. It makes other people have a better life, and maybe that's a close definition to jazz or spontaneity, like Aristotle talked about. But I'll pause there.
Yeah. No, I think it's spot on, right? Like I was actually listening to a podcast, Lewis Howell's In Search for I forget the name of his title, but Lewis Howell, great podcast. The person he had on was a doctor, and they were talking about the difference between the mind and the brain, and how there's like sometimes they get confused. And what I hear about making jazz is what she was talking about is how basically we all have a gravitational field around us. And it's, if you think about it, not from like a woohoo perspective, but like we literally have, like science has shown, we generate a gravitational field. And it's like that thing that pulls people in, and all of a sudden you're like, why did I just have this incredible conversation with somebody I've just met? It's because there was that energy alignment, and you just came slam together. Like that's that I think that is what is so exciting, and being able to find ways to connect more people to have just those incredible conversations.
Yeah, it's an honor to be in those places where people connect in that way. Or imagine like working with someone and they've got such a beautiful idea and they could go help so many lives. But like the Challenger scientists, right? We all know what happened to Challenger.
Yeah.
They couldn't convey their message. They couldn't get into a room and get people excited. And then on top of that, the politics didn't allow it, just to give credit to the environment as well. But really, if you've got a beautiful message out there, the one problem that everybody has is people don't understand, right? That's really, really wild. And so it's always super exciting when you can see someone be understood. And like she said, and like you talked about, that the things that come from that are just, it's the definition of the word fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, that understood is like, that word jumped out to me when you said it. It's just like, it's so true. Everyone is just craving to be understood. And like when you have those moments where you're connecting with somebody and you don't have to like overly explain, they're just like, I get it. And it just starts to flow. Like it almost feels like you're in a different body, right? Like the environment is totally changed. Your guard is down, and it's just I think the best way to describe it is it's a beautiful experience to be able to have that. And it's interesting when they show up, and the frequency, if you're starting to consciously start to go look for that and understand the energy of the other person that you're gravitating towards.
Yeah, I'm just getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Well, hey, so I want to hear about one from you then on that level. So what's a time recently that you felt just that jazz?
Well, you know what? That's an easy one for me. It was yesterday. So I was introduced. You've met our friend Tom at one of the open forums. And so he introduced me to a gentleman from Argentina. And we meshes briefly on LinkedIn. I'm like, you know what? Let's just jump on a call and like, let's see where this goes. And it was like supposed to be 15 minutes. It was an hour and a half later. I'm like, oh my God, I got to actually go make dinner. My kids are going to be hungry and wife's going to be home soon. Like it just was one of those opportunities where time flew by, and he's just like, what? This feels like it's only been 10, 15 minutes. I'm like, no, man, it's been an hour and a half. Like we just started talking about his home country. We talked about like connections and, what it was like helping people and serving people, and like for like the greater good and authenticity. But we had an opportunity where it was just like, this was us. Like there was no mask, no nothing else. There was no hidden agenda. It was just an opportunity to be authentic, and it just flowed.
That's amazing when 10 minutes, like you said, turns into an hour and a half, and you're like, oh, fudge, I need to go with my kids. Yes.
Yeah.
Man, I'm so grateful that you have that on a regular basis, and one moreover, that you didn't have to reach back too far for that. I think therein might be a really cool problem. You know what I mean? Like, why do people not have this around them? People that
Yeah.
celebrate their victories, et cetera, et cetera.
No, I think that's honestly, just asking the question, when was the last time you had that beautiful conversation, is like, that in itself should be a check mark at least every week. Be like, did you have one? Are you open to one? If you didn't have one, like, what do we need to do to help you get to be able to have one? Because sometimes it's a bit of a mindset, but like when they happen, like it changes your day. Like it just puts a little pep in your step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so cool. And when you look at your life, you can say, wow, I spend this much time with these many people and they give back to me in a certain way. Have you so there's a book called The Five Love Languages,
Oh
right?
yes, yeah,
Yeah, right. And so these people, you got to be honest with yourselves. I've found myself in this situation before where it's like, am I getting that person that just gives me such a high return to my love bank? You know what I mean? To the ability for me to generate that field, like we were talking about, and let my light shine in the world. That's a pretty powerful thing. And so, something really tangible for people and for myself is, it seems like, just as a theory, that if you spend X time with people and they, and it's more than like a quarter of your week or something like that, that person better be utilizing all the best ways of depositing in your bank. And if they're not, you get two options, right? You cut and run, right? You just sort of like, hey, I love you so much, but unless you can learn these things, I can't go. Or you go on this amazing learning adventure with someone. And it really, I think it just takes honesty with yourself to start. Because, man, once you realize that, there's no stopping you. You know what I mean?
no.
You're going to demand it, right? You're like, there's an option out there. I'm going to have this, and I'm not going to live in any other world. Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, no, it's totally true, right? Like, and it's funny, the way that you worded it is very similar. It's just like there's a spoken word poet on TikTok that had almost the exact same thing. It's just like, well, there's two options when things get hard. You can either cut or run, or you can learn to change it into something else, right? Like, and to be able to be in a spot to be like, no, we're going to change this into something else, right? Like, it is a two-way street, right? Like, you have to be able to, are you making the deposits into their love tank as well? So like it's I don't want to view it as like a barter system, but it's just like, what are you doing your part of that conversation? Are you bringing your part to it? Are you bringing the best of you to it? And if not, do you think you're going to get the best back? Like it's that, sir. I talk about it with people about serving from your saucer. So everyone talks about, like, having your love bucket full, or your cup full. I think you have to find your ways to know how that cup gets full, but then being able to serve from your saucer, because now you've given the best to yourself, and now you're able to actually truly give the best to everybody who gets to be around that area of effect with you.
Yeah. I was immediately thinking of like, so I'm going to ask this in a question for you. So
Sure.
what what feels like a good process? Because this is coming off the hip right now. I've never thought about this before. What feels like a good process to determine, like, okay, so let's say we use units, and my cup can only hold a certain amount of units, and then it is flowing over. Like Lao Tzu said, a bird that nests in the forest only needs one branch. So you're basically defining what you need, right?
Right.
So what's a good process you feel for helping somebody define what they need?
Oh.
I know. Whoa.
That in itself is a beautiful question. If we could solve that, we would be doing all right. But my stab at that is, I think it depends on where you're at in your journey around that, right? Because there's a reason that there's tons of people that are selling, I'll teach you your purpose, I'll teach you how to find your purpose in life. It's you've got a bunch of people that are kind of feeling like they're in the fog or like lost, versus people that are well into their journey going, these are the types of things I know, versus we'll call them the masters, that are like, I need this, this, and this, and everything else is, cream. It's the extra part. So if it were to be somebody who's lost in the fog, and I think my first piece of advice would start to be sampling life, because when you get stuck in that fog, you stop moving and you stop looking around, and curiosity, it shuts down. So I think the true path to all that is finding bringing the curiosityness of being a child again back into all aspects of that life, going towards what is it that you like doing? Because sometimes that's a really hard answer for an adult. Like, what do you like doing outside of work and being a parent and being a husband? Be like, when I was 20, I'd be like, no, like, what do you do now? I'd be like, I don't do anything now. Start sampling those things again, right? Like there's time to be made to start to sample life, to figure out what it is that you like, and be really aware of like, did I get a high from this? Did this bring more like vibrational good energy up in me? Am I excited about it? Or when I sampled it, it'd be like, no, I didn't. No, I don't want to taste this again. Just being really aware of that and trying to find more of those bits that bring that high up for you, bring you into a good state. Because I think what you have to do is start to find what your palette is, right? And it kind of changes from being a kid to being a young adult to being, in our generation or our age bracket of being parents and being, entrepreneurs and being husbands and wives, like all those things change so much about what you're looking for. So keep on sampling the different parts of it to find out what it is. So you at least know in your body when you're experiencing it, because then you can start to be aware. And I think that's the first step, is just that learning to be self-aware.
Wow, that's you're just like, well, if we can answer that one, then you came pretty close there. That's great. And you know what, I can't really define what close is, but it felt like it, like sort of intuitively. And so, start sampling life and bring that curiosity back into it. And you talked about finding your palette. I saw you as like, you definitely look like Bob Ross, right there.
We're gonna paint some happy little clouds.
Find your palettes, and then happy.
What about you? What would you add on to that?
Oh man, I think you really nailed it. That's it's really cool. So I would say I'm gonna put a demand out there for myself, not to anyone else, a demand to myself, like Carl Jung talked about, living as the person in the mirror, right? I know he was biased towards men in his statements, but he said the man in the mirror, but live as a person in the mirror, that image of future self that you'd like to be, and make sure that you understand that person's diet. Right? Like, imagine that my daughter right now, Natalie, when I think of her, I'm dealing with like 30-year-old Natalie, right? So what do they need, right? What are going to be the things that intrinsically I know undeniably are going to be healthy in their life? And it's easy to do that for other people. So let's all channel those skills of doing it for others back to ourselves for a moment here, and just ask ourselves the question of like, what do I undeniably need, and am I getting it in a certain time period, right? Yeah. Am I getting those experiences? Are you doing the date night, right? Are you, et cetera, and it even comes back to maybe even time blocking, right? Like you're basically laying down a block and saying, if I don't do this, I'm not as respectable as I think I am.
Ooh,
right?
That's essentially a powerful challenge.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just you and you. Right? Yeah. You and the mirror. And so, yeah, you know what? If I miss one of those blocks, I'm like, Bryant, you know what? I'm not going to hate. I'm just going to say, wow, you just got slapped in the face by life, and you need to do better. And that's good. Right. Yeah. And that's a really great thing. That's like carpe diem. That's the whole thing. And if you don't internalize motivation in that way, there are other ways to speak about it. So I would note that there's many motivation manifestos out there. My partner has a very different one than I do. I'm more of a fountain, and he's actually more of a cup or a purse, right? And so, I can speak well to that because I help a lot of people in that regard. However, I'll admit that I find it difficult to define what I need, right? So I'm not saying I have the answer either, and I'm acknowledging there's other systems of approaching it. So the best I've got is, am I getting what I need on a weekly basis? That's how I define it. I've got to hit these goals every week of making sure to spend time with these people because I know that's going to recharge me. They speak my love language. They make deposits intentionally, right, in that way. And am I doing that date night once a week? Am I making it 5 to 7:30 with my kids, right? Those kinds of things. And so I guess, it's routine, right? Maybe I'll just boil it all down to a routine of sampling life in order to find what your palate is.
Yeah.
Wow, I love talking with you, Gene.
Well, I think that's, as I listen to you say it, the thought in my mind is like, there's a quote. That's a pull quote that's coming out at some point, and it's beautiful, right? To be able to break it down like that, and it is achievable, and it comes down. I really liked your call to yourself of, am I going to respect myself? How am I going to, is the person I'm looking at in the mirror looking back going, yeah, you did the right things. Thank you for feeding me. Thank you for allowing me to come into existence. Right. And it is that ability to, I think that's that next big step of being able to like close your eyes and truly visualize and step into the person you want to be. Right. What do they look like? What do they smell like? What do they talk like? Who do they hang out with? What are the things that gets them excited, and like really starting to appreciate and create that fertile ground for you to grow into, right? It does take a little bit of foresight to be able to do that.
And you need the time to do it, and good people to help you get past your cognitive dissonance, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
The wonderful little lies we tell to ourselves, and we all do it, right? We all do it. That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. We are so good at telling ourselves a bunch of BS and it's just selling ourselves on a story, selling ourselves short so often. And I get it. I understand it. It's like evolutionary wise, like it kept us safe. Like, right. We've only really lived in this like very safe, relatively safe and secure world. We're not being chased by saber-toothed tigers. Like death's not knocking on our door every other minute. And so this has only been the last 100, 200 years. And like the human race has been programmed to protect from those things for tens of thousands of years, and trying to really understand, to know that what it's doing is there as a protective mechanism. It's almost like you got to go tell your protector, be like, it's okay. We're good. We don't need this story. We're not running away. We're not trying to hide right now. Thank you. And appreciate what it's trying to do without beating yourself up. So it's a bit of a tangent there, but like there's a component of it when you're lost and you get all these negative things happening, or these little lies, and you get caught up in them. More often than not, we beat ourselves up for it. Be like, it's okay. We all do it. Just bring a little bit of awareness to it. We have this incredible power to be able to observe our own thoughts. Like we can think about our own thoughts. Like that's an incredible gift that we have as a species. And it's one that, if we cultivate it the right way, can really open up the fun parts of life, right? Like I view it as like, I talked about it on a post with somebody on LinkedIn, is like, he's like celebrating turning 40. Like, brother, it's just when the good content starts opening it up. And I remember that back from playing MMO games from way back in the day, right? Like everyone used to talk about when Warcraft first came out, like, oh, the game doesn't really start happening until you hit level 40. You'd be like, it's true. It doesn't. And there's so many other great things still to come.
Yeah, it's amazing. The idea of leveling up. And then we would have to know where we've come from and where we're going to. Yeah. Right? It sort of brings in the past. I think you touched on that nicely. You don't have to beat yourself up. You don't have to surround yourself with people who think they have good intentions with limitations. You can find people out there. There are just, I had a good cry at the bottom of the Chase Tower, right, in Chicago. And that really changed my life. I took that very seriously. And, it's how I take my future self seriously. And so, yeah, you know what? You guys are incredible. Gene, you're incredible. Your family, everybody, we're all in this together. And we need to take each other just as seriously and actually less seriously than we take ourselves, right? Take yourself the most serious. Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I know it's easy to help others. I do that really well. I help others in the ways that I want to help myself. And at the same time, it's up to each. We can only help them as much as we help ourselves. It's the 20 minutes of stretching, anchor your day, or other things like that. It's, I'm just starting to do these things in my life. Right. And I get to be surrounded by people. Like I said, success is being surrounded by people who will push you and who objectively, you know, they have one expectation of you. And I know that people say expectations kill, but I think I've found one that's really healthy. Is I expect other people to be who they are every day, and I understand that might be not as tangible as we'd like the world to be, or as controllable or as concise as we'd like the world to be. But really, that person gets to define those restrictions, and from those restrictions, you can see the cup forming. You know what I mean? You know,
Yeah.
you can see it starting like, hey, I know that at least have to get this much, right? And everything else is cream, right? You said that I
Yeah.
think there's a great quote right there, right? And that progression you talked about is really amazing. And so we look at our evolutionary process, it's the same. We look at our social processes, it's the same, right? So give ourselves a break. You know what I mean? And you know, I a break from the demands of others, of just being a dad and not having that time like you talked about.
Yeah.
You're my mind is spinning with all sorts of amazing things that I get to learn with people out there. And it started with me saying, I'm going to get healthier. Right. And everybody in my life had accepted me for who I was then. And I know that's comfortable. It's just so cool what happens on the other side of doing the uncomfortable work. So thanks for inspiring me to think about this stuff, man. This is great.
Well, you were very welcome. It's just like these are the conversations that fill my tank as well, right? And I hope when other people watch this that they get the same feeling for it. It brings up some questions and more questions, right? Like I think our lives are totally controlled by the quality of the questions that we're daring to ask, right? And if we're not getting out of life what we want, then I don't think we're actually being brave enough to ask quality questions that may take us a little bit outside of our comfort zone. For some of us, we've embraced being outside of that comfort zone, and it's okay. Like I know you'll take big leaps out of it at times, and others may look at that going, "You're crazy. We can't even see where you landed." You're like, "Don't worry, I'm shining the light. Come on over. This is all good." Right? And it's incredible what happens when we have that. I don't know a better term for it other than safety or to know that the people around us are going to be supportive of when we make that leap outside of our comfort zone, because things are going to go wrong. That's the beauty of being outside the comfort zone. When all those things go wrong, be like, you talk about learning and being able to learn and bring that curiosity back into it. Is that you're only going to learn when you're messing things up or you're trying new things. And when you try new things, they don't always go right the first time. They're not supposed to.
Yeah, man, you're reminding me, you're basically nailing it like Tony Robbins does, right? You talked about the idea of just being open to learning and seeing the best in things. I'm just, I'm here like everybody else, and when somebody falters, that's when we realize who your true friends are. Because when you make a mistake, right, you find out how strong you are,
Yeah.
right? It's the postmortem, and I understand that we need both perspectives, those to focus on the mistake and those to focus on the postmortem. And it's really where I find my solace is focusing on the growth that we can take away from a postmortem. So, you know what? I'd love to hear a story from you if you want of, making a mistake and people falling to the side, or, just the
Oh.
natural course of life.
Well, jokingly, I'm like, oh, which one do I start with? It's I find so here's my take on why I struggle with being asked that question, because when I run teams, I always tell everybody in the team, like, part of our mantra is like, there are no mistakes. Like, if we're learning, the only mistake is if we do the same thing and don't learn it a second time. That's the only time that there's a mistake. Everything else is a learning opportunity. And I'm struggling to find a specific one.
There's also
But
the
yeah,
people and a lot to consider.
yeah, there really is, right? But the easiest one maybe that comes to mind is this one. This one's more like on the surface, it seems very like body like aware, but so I did something called the 75 hard challenge. Actually last May, like on May 25th, I started it. And on the surface, it looks like it's a workout challenge because it's part like you have to exercise twice for 45 minutes every day, read, but then you got to read 10 pages of a nonfiction book. You got to drink 4 liters of water. You got to pick your own like diet plan or eating plan to go around. And then I'm missing one other thing. We've got working out, eating, water. Oh, and like no cheats. So the goal is to get through the full 75 days of doing that. And it was interesting to go through. I got through it on the first try because I was determined. My wife had started it with me too. And right before we start, the day before we started, she goes, "I think you're going to break. You're going to have a beer." I'm like, "No, I'm not going to." And it was just like that driving factor of us. Like there was a little bit of like fun competition going into it. But like the things I've learned about myself over this last year is like, I'm in the best shape of my life. And I turned 40 last year, right? Like I was able to like look in the mirror and go, wow, like I haven't looked like this good, like, or been this happy with my body since in my early 20s when I like work out a lot. And it just felt right. But being able to step into it and knowing that every day was going to be a challenge. I didn't know how some of those days were going to go. There were some days where it's like 12 o'clock at night. I'm like, oh man, I still need to do my last 45, or I haven't read, or, and you go and you just go and do it. And it's not so much a mistake, but it's about learning what you're capable of and going, if I make a mistake, I know what the consequences are. The respect level is I have to start back at day one. I didn't want to start back at day one because I had a friend's stag that I wanted to go to and actually be able to have a beer if I wanted to. And if I messed up, I'd be the DD in that group, and that wasn't what I was aiming for. But the opportunities that it opened up for me by being able to step into it, and some days just feeling like a complete mess and failure and wondering what the hell I was doing. I look back on that and like it was that time that things just started to like skyrocket in a lot of different directions for a lot of things, because you're grinding against going, what am I capable of every single day? And that's basically what that challenge does for you, is like, what are you capable of? And I learned a lot about it. I learned a lot about myself. It's when I made the switch from doing consulting to coaching. You know, it opened up conversational doors for me, and I just started to look at life differently for it. So it's not so much that it was a mistake, but it was a hell of a learning opportunity.
That's pretty wild, man. So let me get that correct. You did 75 hard, which were, what are the requirements again?
So it's like 2 workouts, 45 minutes. One has to be outside every day. 4 liters of water, 10 pages of reading, a fiction book every day, and then your own eating plan, and no alcohol or cheat foods, like no chips, or, you know, like just no junk food and no alcohol for all that time, which actually was pretty easy, right? Like it's again, like one of those things that I went through. Like one of the learnings I took from it actually was a new association with alcohol for myself. Was I had no problem. I would always say, I don't have a drinking problem, because I am having a drink, right? It's a big joke, but I look at it now and like, I have zero desire for it. Like I don't enjoy it. And I look back going, what was it actually covering up?
Probably boredom, right? From a brilliant mind like yours.
Yeah, right. Like it's just like those are I don't see it as a mistake. It's just learning opportunities that I was ready to step out of my comfort zone in a big way. And for me, that was a big way doing all of that. And it's just like the things that it started to highlight were very interesting.
Associations and things like that. Yeah, really cool. And you made a promise to your wife and to friends and to yourself, moreover, that became the root of that. And it was, and it takes surrender to the outcome sometimes. Nicely done, sir. Nicely done. You're making me think, man, I want to go do that now. That's yes.
Well, you let me know. I'm down for doing another round. So I've still got, 3 phases afterwards. So I've got one more phase left I have to do, but another 30-day component of it. But what about for yourself? Is there something at that level to speak to your greatest takeaways from embracing, I guess air quote mistakes? But I think
Mhm.
when I talk to you and hear from you, I hear learning opportunities.
Yeah, we've talked about it. Mistake, the other side of a mistake is learning, or the postmortem, and there's a lot of value in that. I wouldn't encourage a life of mistakes, but at the same time, it's going to happen. I've made some massive mistakes, and it's interesting. So let's give two circumstances. So let's say I make a mistake with code. That's one thing. But now at what I'm doing, if I make a mistake that's lives, that's people's electricity in their socket, those kinds of things. And so, yeah, I made a mistake recently where, I wasn't being honest with myself as a leader, right? That I was listening. I wasn't listening. That's what happened. And it really, a number of people decided to leave a team because they felt, I'm assuming, marginalized and other things along those lines. And this was a stage where, I had put a lot of my own time and investment into this company, and I hadn't learned to let go. Right, I hadn't really learned to let go and to listen, and everything had to be done through my own vision, and that was a real powerful moment that taught me that I didn't have to control things, that I could trust people,
Yeah.
and that I had to figure out how, back to defining what that cup is, why I respect people, why I respect myself, and then from there, with that respect, how much are you willing to trust someone with? And then through loyalty, that respect can, improve and increase and time, and then you trust people with more, right? And that's just how the wheels on the bus go. And
Yeah.
as much as I thought I was on that bus, I wasn't, right? I was holding my team and my company back, right? So to really be able to say that is such a joy. That's such a joy, and to be able to live with that kind of growth, that's amazing. And so, okay, that's great, I have that, but other people had to pay a cost, a massive cost with me, and that's what causes me to be really mindful of who I associate with, and how I work with them. And I'm actually still, that's very fresh, right? That's less than a year old in my life. And so the I'm currently, I'm sharing with you, and I'm sure a fantastic audience here, just the real stuff of,
Yeah.
I every day when I work out, shower, spend time meditating, these are the kinds of things that come to mind. And I ask myself, am I doing the best I can today? And yes, tomorrow will be better, but am I doing the best I can today to respect my partner's wife or his family, or the time away from them, et cetera, et cetera?
Right.
And am I making the use of their time when I do have it effective and empowering, and they feel like they were listened to, and they have a deep sense of ownership and respect for themselves, and they're getting all the things that we're saying that we enjoy in our lives back from me? Man, such an honor. And it might sound daunting, however, like you said, it just becomes routine, where the association to doing these things becomes something that gives back to you, and you can do more by doing it.
Yeah.
It's wild when that just switch just happens. You just won't do. You're like, I won't live in any other life, and yeah,
Well,
you keep doing better. Yeah.
yeah. Right. And it is a constant and never ending cycle of improvement if you're open to it. Right. And being able to be hearing from you, like that's a high level of self reflection, and being able to go, okay, what are the parts I need to own from this? And then rubbing up against those and going, oh, whoa, okay, I did some things that I'm not happy about. I can own it. I can make amends with it, and I know now what to be watching for, and so that's no longer a blind spot. And I can really empower teams. I can truly, say here's the vision, and have all these incredible people with all these incredible abilities helping me move it forward without being that bottleneck.
Yeah. Yeah. And I finished the book Blink recently, right? And it was just a fantastic experience. And there's this the Colonel, right? And he would call up. This is a guy that did like Project, I think it was Millennium with JF Khan and some of the big like tests in the book, right? Like big war games and those kinds of
Yeah.
things, studying the human decision making. And he said, in Vietnam, I'd call my troops right away when the gunfire was going off, and no one would know what was going on, right? Nobody would know where the gunfire's come from. It's just gunfire, right? Instead, he started waiting 5 minutes and still same result. So he stopped calling, right? And then what he found is people had to look at their own 2 feet as to what they could do about something. And it's so contrary. I heard Ben Horowitz and Mark Andreessen talk about this recently. They said, you got to put the pressure on other people. When the pressure's on you, you're going to control that pressure. You're going to try to do something about it. But when the pressure's on other people, the control's out of your hands. It's so counterintuitive. It just doesn't make sense, yet it works. And then it just makes sense why it works after that.
Well, from that, I take I forget where I've heard this from before, but it's like you are either going to be in charge of the outcomes or the actions. You can't be in charge of both at the same time. So you as a leader, you can either basically be the micromanager boss, or you can be the actual leader. Go, hey, this is where we're going. You guys, I trust all of you. Go there and you tell me what I help remove the roadblocks. I'll answer any questions, but I'm not here to do. That's what I trust in you to get us there.
And letting go, like your buddy Steven, who has been such a fantastic gift to our lives as well. Thank you, Steven. You're fantastic.
He's a great guy.
Letting go is critical. And I see the time here, Gene, as well. Look at us, like, boom. We're just right on point.
43 minutes. It's like this this is what I look forward to every Wednesday, is having these conversations, because all of a sudden we are 45 minutes into this, and it's been a great conversation. So Brian, is there any shout outs or anything you want to give to the Blueprint community while we're here, or let people know about what it is? Because we just kind of like jumped into it and didn't really touch on that very much.
Sure. First goes to my wife for being a compass in the dark when I was totally lost. Second, my partner, Ben, for believing in me when everyone left. And, you're a true friend, and I will never forget that. Third is to the community, because I became a better man by getting to know you, and you feel as though you're doing great. And that just is so fantastic. And yes, Blueprint's a think tank that accidentally became an incubator for poets, outcasts, people all over the world they feel alone on a mountain, and no one understands them. No society will take them in. They feel completely defeated. And those are people we really understand, because that's where we started from, right? That's where and you're brilliant, and you're going to go make lives better. And we would love to meet you and help how we can, because you help us at the same time to be better men and women, to leave the campsite better, to do this thing that we're all in together better. So thank you. I'll pause there, Gene. It's just been fantastic. This is my first interview, someone interviewing me and just bringing me on to this kind of thing. And so I can't tell you how grateful I am.
Well, I really appreciate it. I know what it's like when you're sitting on the other side of the mic sometimes. And so I always ask each of my guests one last question to wrap it all up. So if you could jump into a time machine right now and go back 10 years, what's that one piece of advice you would give yourself when you opened that door?
Read Think and Grow Rich immediately, today.
Love it. That's brilliant. Perfect.
I probably wouldn't have listened, but that's the advice I'd give.
Well, that's not part of the question. It'd be like, if we all jumped out and our past selves were like, that old guy, I'm not going to listen to that old guy. I knew what he was, that younger version was like. He was stubborn sometimes, but it doesn't mean it's not a great piece of advice for somebody else to pick up in their journey today. So thank you very much. Thank you so much for being open and completely authentic on the show today, Brand. I just appreciate it so much. So, and to everybody else, thank you for watching. I know we actually had a good number of people watching live today. So thank you for being here. My name is Gene. I'm the Enjoyment Coach with Pealed Back, and we'll see you all next Wednesday.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye, everyone.